Emiru has a perfect legal counter for Mizkif in the latest in the legal saga. Of course, I'm Andrew Esquire, and this is a legal mindset we can teach you to be your own judge. Of course, it's a fast fact version, the quick and dirty version of the latest in legal news. So in the saga of Emiru versus Mizkif, obviously, we have the lawsuit that was filed by Mizkif. We covered that previously, but now we have an opportunity for Emiru to counter, to punch back. So we're going to talk about what she can do here. Of course, some quick disclaimers. All the allegations are allegations that must be proved in law, in a court of law. But at this point, with Mizkif saying he's going to go demon mode and he's going to go hardcore in the paint,
it's time to go full demon time. It is time to go full demon time. Let's watch the world fucking burn.
With no sign of settlement over the past couple days and weeks, it looks like we are prepared for war. That is legal warfare, lawfare, or maybe lawsuit fare, as it may end up being a joke on Mizkif's side. But that said, Emiru has not made her official counterclaims. This is my speculation on her best legal response, speaking to plaintiffs' attorneys in California and Texas and doing some research myself. So obviously you have Emmy here, and she's very much at the center of this. Over the past couple weeks, since my last stream, nothing has changed the public support for her, the evidence in her side. Everything looks like it is stacking up in her favor so far. Meanwhile, Mizkif over here, who promised to release information, has not done that, and it has indeed seemed to be more dedicated to his delusional self-grandeur, where he does believe he can come out on top despite a horrible lawsuit, despite facts that are against him, and this somehow not totally destroying his reputation and career. And of course, he was the one to file this joke of a lawsuit, this hilariously bad lawsuit that just is absolutely a joke. He's the one who started the aggression. So the question is, how does Emmy fight back? How does she get back at him? Well, based on my research and discussions, there are two claims which I think are very potentially viable. The first is intentional infliction of emotional distress, and that's the main one we're going to talk about today. That's the real nuke, I think, that comes in. Then you've got defamation. Now, defamation involves false statement of facts. You have to prove actual malice because these people are public figures. They're both streamers. And obviously damage reputation, which both of them can say they potentially have if the other one was lying. But the big problem with defamation is the actual malice standard. And if this is brought in Texas, it's very difficult to prove a defamation case in Texas. Whereas IIED, if it's brought in a particular jurisdiction that I'm going to talk about today, we've got a great case. You just have to show these elements: extreme and outrageous behavior. And that's the real key here. The behavior has to be beyond what a reasonable, normal person would do. It has to be extreme. You have to have a level of state of mind that's intentional or reckless state of mind. And then you have to have a connection between the reckless behavior and the emotional distress. And you have to have an injury as well. Let's talk about extreme behavior. Well, you have the alleged sexual assault. And now that's climbing on top of Emmy while she's crying and Mizkif shoving his hand down her pants. In some states, sexual behavior in and of itself is considered outrageous and extreme. I'm going to say that again. In some states, like California, you have sexual behavior that is per se automatically considered extreme. So that alone might be enough. But we've got more, kids. We've got more. Stalking and persistent harassment. We've got repeated messages after she's cut off communication, after she said to stop or just stop. He would not stop. He persisted over a period of time. You also have blackmail threats. You have a smear campaign, indirect threats to friends and family, contacting Twitch employees and other streamers to join in a smear campaign, and psychological and domestic abuse, including controlling acts like violence, punching the wall, or controlling what she does, controlling her behavior, controlling what she does on stream. These all come together as a whole to paint an extreme picture. They're not taken one by one. I know a lot of people are going to go one by one and say, well, alone, this isn't a problem. No, but you're putting it together in court. You're putting all of it, taking the totality and saying, is this extreme? And I think a reasonable person or reasonable judge would say yes. You also had, of course, this proof here, and I shout out to Mujan, I got this from his video, that, hey, there's some controlling behavior here going back for a while in terms of what she does on stream. Okay, so you have intent to cause distress. So Mizkif's persistence, despite clear boundaries, shows that he knew over time. This wasn't heat of the moment. This wasn't a passionate fight that went away and he apologized later because he realized he was being unreasonable. He persisted over time. That shows a long-term intent. Also, after his assault, after the post-assault reaction, he said what he did was wrong. So saying hey, what I did to Emmy, getting on top and shoving down the pants, that was wrong, implies awareness, but yet he continued to harass her. He's continuing to harass her even after that. So he hasn't left her alone even after he knows he impacted. Also, he admitted controlling tendencies. He's confessed to them, such as influencing her appearance, relationship dynamics. And it indicates a pattern of disregard for her autonomy, right? Which shows an intent to control. You also have solicitation of others. Once again, he had to intentionally go out there over a period of time and try to recruit people to come against her. That shows a strong level of intent. In terms of emotional distress, if you are somebody who is crying, during a potential essay, there can be acute trauma. There can also be prolonged psychological fear and impacts from this public disclosure that was hanging over her head like a sword of Damocles. It was hanging over her head for months, and she had to hold this back and hold this in. Also, if you look at the basis for the restraining orders, you have a sustained impact that has potential professional fallout. The fact that OTK had to come out and publicly support her shows that public sentiment, public impact, public reputation, professional reputation, they were all at stake here. These are all emotional damages, right? But the question is where to file. There are two potential places based on the respective residences of Mizkif and of Emmy. You've got California and you've got Texas, both of which would be viable. So which should they pick? Well, if I was Emmy, California wins. That's putting politics aside. I know a lot of people think I was going to pick Texas and say, oh, rah, Texas is based. No. You have to pick the one where you think you're going to win. You think you're going to be successful. And in my analysis, that's California. Why? Well, because of four elements: personal jurisdiction, the evidentiary standard, the success rate, and the defenses. So under the personal jurisdiction, it's easy because Mizkif's resident. Texas might be dismissed or transferred because of the minimum contacts rule, saying, hey, no longer in Texas, right? So we're gonna look at that not favorably and transfer that. However, California would be very, very easy to get into. You've also got an evidentiary standard where California treats sexual conduct as per se outrageous conduct. So that is under the Christensen case, and that's going to be very, very advantageous for Emmy. The other thing is punitive damages. She wanted to stop this from happening to other women. Well, that's what punitive damages are for. They're to stop this behavior in the future and make it so it's not a slap on the wrist. So instead of a small award, punitive damages are like a damage multiplier in a game. Let's say you did 1,000 damage. Well, now it's 10,000. Now it's more, 5,000, whatever. So something like a 2x, 3x, 4x, 5x, 10x is possible in certain states under certain circumstances, right? You also have a success rate. In California, emotional harm is very much something you can litigate. So because of that, because they don't require physical harm, and California is so open to emotional harm, you might want to go there. The last thing is Texas has strong anti-slap laws and fee shift. So if Emmy was to come after him or counter and they found that claim was not sufficient, they would shift those fees potentially back on Emmy. Now, mind you, Mizkif may have his fees shifted if he, messing around or whatever else. But in this case, I think Texas is a bad place to go in terms of the anti-slap laws and the fee shifting. So that's my opinion on that. Defamation, real quick. I think one of the parties is not being honest at this point. At all, the intuition is that is Mizkif. So I'm going to presumptively say that Mizkif is not telling the truth. But hiding the truth and lying is one thing. Actual malice is another. So you can be lying to a degree, saying like maybe you're not fully disclosing information, but you're not outright lying, right? You're kind of, it's a gray area lie or something like that. That might not rise to actual malice. Or if you just don't know, we don't have the information, that might not rise to actual malice. It's very difficult. And in Texas, it's going to be near impossible. However, in California, this might be viable as a secondary claim. So I would throw that in there as a secondary claim. So what I would say is Emmy has an extremely viable case against Mizkif for intentional infliction of emotional distress, particularly in California. Defamation is less viable because it can be thrown in, but it can be thrown in as a secondary claim against Mizkif in California in a California lawsuit. Thank you once again for the infinite content, Mizkif. And guys, thank you for being here with me today and being so based. Make sure you smash the like button. Tell me what you think of the lawsuit below. Who do you think is going to win? Will Emmy bring a counterclaim? I want to know in the comments below, and I will catch you on the